Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be diving into the world of robotaxis today, specifically what's happening over in Austin, Texas. So we came across this article titled Waymo Robotaxis are coming to Austin on Uber soon. And yeah, this is big. Like, picture this. You're in Austin, you need a ride, open your Uber app, and bam, a driverless car shows up.
It's pretty wild, right? Not science fiction anymore. It's becoming reality thanks to this new partnership between Uber and Waymo, the Google self-driving car company. And this isn't like what Waymo's doing in Phoenix, where they kind of operate on their own. In Austin, it's Uber app only if you want to catch a ride in one of these robotaxis.
Oh, so it's an exclusive deal. That's interesting. It actually shows how Uber's strategy has kind of shifted.
Yeah.
Remember a while back when they were all about developing their own self-driving cars? They even had that whole division for it, Uber ATG.
Yeah, Uber ATG, that was their big push to create their own, autonomous vehicle technology. But back in 2020, they decided to sell that unit off. They sold it to Aurora, another self-driving company.
So instead of competing head-to-head with companies like Waymo, they're like, hey, let's team up. Seems like a smart move, right? They get to be a part of this whole robo-taxi thing without the huge cost and risk of building all that tech themselves.
Exactly. It's way less risky. And for Waymo, this partnership gives them like instant access to Uber's huge user base. Millions of potential riders right there at their fingertips.
I see. Yeah, that's a win-win, on the surface at least. But are there any potential downsides for either company? Like, for example, could this deal impact Uber drivers in Austin? What do you think?
That's a really great point and a big question mark for sure. I mean, some drivers might definitely see it as a threat to their livelihood, while others might see it as an opportunity. Maybe they could shift into different roles within the Uber ecosystem, like managing or maintaining the robotaxi fleet. It's hard to say how it'll all play out at this point.
I see what you mean. And what about Waymo? Are there any risks for them in relying solely on Uber's platform in Austin?
Well, there's always a risk when you tie your success to another company. You become dependent. In this case, Waymo becomes dependent on Uber's app for everything.
Yeah.
Booking rides, customer service, the whole nine yards. So if there are any issues with the Uber app, it directly impacts Waymo's service. They're giving up some control.
Interesting. So, yeah, there are some things to think about with this partnership for sure. It's more complex than just a simple win-win. But let's talk about Austin itself for a second. What makes it such a good place for this kind of robo-taxi rollout?
Well, Austin has always been known as a tech-savvy city. They're very open to innovation. It's in their DNA. It's a city that likes to experiment with new ideas, and that's exactly what's needed to make autonomous vehicles work.
Right. And I've also heard that Austin's city government has been very supportive of these self-driving car companies. Did they offer any specific incentives to attract Waymo and Uber?
Yeah, they've definitely been proactive. They've tried to create a regulatory environment that is friendly to autonomous vehicles. Things like streamlining the permitting process, establishing clear guidelines for how self-driving cars can operate. There may have been some financial incentives offered as well, but we don't know the specifics.
Gotcha. So it seems like Austin is actively trying to be a leader in this whole autonomous vehicle space. And the service won't be citywide right away, will it?
That's correct. It'll be starting in a 37 square mile area, includes downtown Hyde Park and Montopolis. It's a strategic choice. They want to start with a more limited area where they can closely monitor the technology and gather data before expanding further.
Makes sense. So you're in Austin, right? Are you excited to try and hail a robo-taxi?
I'm definitely intrigued. I think it'll be fascinating to see how this technology changes how we get around the city.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure some people are hesitant too, especially those who drive for a living. What are people saying about this in Austin?
Well, it's a mixed bag. There's definitely some excitement, people eager to try it out. But of course, there's some apprehension too. People are worried about losing their jobs and how it will impact traffic.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how those concerns are addressed as things progress. But you know what? I bet some of our listeners are thinking, okay, this all sounds pretty cool, but how do I actually get a ride in one of these robo-taxis? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So if you're in Austin, Uber has created an interest list within their app. It's basically a way for them to gauge interest and maybe even give priority access when the service launches.
Oh, so it's like the VIP list for the robo-taxi revolution.
Exactly. And signing up is easy. You just open the Uber app, go to settings, then ride preferences, and there should be an option there to express interest in autonomous vehicles.
So even if you don't get matched with a Waymo right away when it launches, being on the list means you'll get updates and maybe even some sneak peeks.
That's the idea. Uber will probably keep you in the loop about how things are progressing, maybe even offer some special promotions or early access to those on the list.
Sweet, I'm signing up. Okay, so you signed up for the list. You're in Austin. You open up the Uber app and request a ride. What kind of car should you expect to show up?
Well, Waymo is using its fleet of all-electric Jaguar I-PACE vehicles for this service. They're pretty cool looking, sleek, and stylish. Plus, they're fully electric, which aligns with Uber's push for sustainability.
Oh, nice. I've seen pictures of those. They look pretty sweet. But okay, let's be real. Are these Robotaxi rides going to cost an arm and a leg?
Good news on that front. The rides are expected to be priced similarly to your typical UberX or Uber Comfort trips. No premium pricing just because it's a self-driving car.
That makes sense. They want to make this accessible to everyone, not just those with a ton of money. Speaking of accessibility, do we know anything about how Waymo is ensuring these robotaxis are usable for people with disabilities?
Yeah, that's a really important point, and they've been working on it. Their Jaguar I-Paces have features like wheelchair ramps, as well as audio-visual cues to assist passengers with visual or hearing impairments.
That's great. Okay, so we've talked about the partnership, how to sign up, what kind of car to expect, and the cost. Now, let's zoom out a little bit and think about the bigger picture. This partnership, along with similar things we're seeing in other cities, it feels like a turning point for autonomous vehicles. Like we're moving beyond testing and toward wider adoption.
I agree. Things are definitely moving. We're seeing a bunch of factors converging all at once. The technology is advancing. We have these strategic partnerships, and the public is becoming more accepting of self-driving cars. It all seems to point toward a future where robotaxis are just a normal part of our transportation systems.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's still some hurdles, right? Like regulations and public trust. Those are big ones.
Oh, absolutely. Those are huge. Every city and state has different rules about autonomous vehicles. Navigating that legal landscape is tough. And then there's the public perception issue, right? Not everyone is comfortable with the idea of riding in a car that drives itself, even if it's proven to be safe.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we get people to trust this technology?
Transparency is key, I think.
Mm.
Companies need to be open about how their technology works, how they're addressing safety concerns, and what they're doing to ensure passengers are safe. Education is a big part of it, too. People need to be given clear information so they can make informed decisions.
That makes a lot of sense. We can't just expect people to trust it blindly. They need to understand it. So it seems like we're heading toward a future where robotaxis are commonplace, but it's not going to happen overnight. There's still work to be done.
Yeah.
But this partnership between Uber and Waymo in Austin is definitely a big step in the right direction.
It is, and it raises some interesting questions like, what will the world actually look like when robotaxis are everywhere? How will our cities change? How will our daily lives be impacted?
Those are great questions. What comes to mind when you think about that?
Well, I think about things like parking lots. Imagine a world where we don't need them anymore because cars are constantly moving, picking up, and dropping off people. Think of all that space that could be used for other things, like parks or housing.
That's a really cool thought. All that space just opened up.
And it's not just about the space. Think about how it could impact accessibility. Robotaxis could be a reliable, affordable way to get around for people who can't drive themselves, like the elderly or people with disabilities.
You're right. That's a really important point. You can change the lives of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the environmental benefits either.
Right, absolutely. If we have a bunch of electric robotaxis on the road, it could significantly reduce emissions in cities, leading to cleaner air and a healthier environment for everyone.
I love that. And you know what else? Think about all the time we spend driving. If we're not driving anymore, we can use that time for other things like working, reading, catching up on emails, or just relaxing.
Exactly. Increased productivity, less stress.
This is mind-blowing. This partnership is just a small glimpse into the future, and that future is coming fast.
I agree.
It really makes you wonder, if robotaxis become the norm, will we even need to own our own cars anymore?
That's the million-dollar question. It's possible we see a shift from individual car ownership to transportation as a service. Imagine subscribing to a service that gives you access to robotaxis, scooters, bikes, maybe even those flying cars everyone's talking about.
Wow, a monthly subscription for all your transportation needs?
Exactly.
That would totally change our relationship with cars. Instead of owning this thing that loses value over time, we'd just be paying for the transportation we need.
It's a whole new way of thinking about transportation.
And think about how that would change cities. Fewer parking lots, more green spaces, more pedestrian areas.
Yeah, it's really exciting to think about. Of course, there will be challenges, but exploring these possibilities is how we make progress.
Well said. This has been a super interesting deep dive into the world of robotaxis and the future of transportation. It seems pretty clear that the way we get around is about to change in a big way, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Me too. And I think the biggest takeaway for everyone listening is this. The future isn't something that just happens to us, it's something we create through our choices, our actions, and our willingness to embrace new things.
I like that. So as you go about your day today, think about how you move around the world and think about all the possibilities that are out there in this new era of transportation. It's going to be a wild ride, that's for sure.
Well, for those of you listening in Austin, Uber has created an interest list in their app. It's a way for them to see how many people are interested, and they might even give people on the list priority access when the service launches.
So like the VIP list for robotaxis.
You got it.
Sign me up. But how do you actually sign up?
It's pretty simple, actually. You open the Uber app, go to Settings, then Ride Preferences. And there should be an option there to express interest in autonomous vehicles.
Gotcha. So even if you don't get matched with a Waymo right away, if you're on the list, you get updates and stuff.
Yeah, probably some sneak peeks, too. Uber will probably keep you informed about the rollout and maybe even offer some special deals to people on the list.
Cool, cool. Okay, so say you've signed up, you're in Austin, you open the app, request a ride. What kind of car should you expect to pull up?
Well, Waymo is using its fleet of all-electric Jaguar I-PACE vehicles for this service.
Oh, those. I've seen pictures. They look pretty nice.
Yeah, they're pretty sleek and stylish, and of course, fully electric, which is good for the environment.
Yeah, Uber's really pushing for sustainability. Okay, but let's be real. Are these robotaxi rides going to be super expensive?
Actually, no. They're expected to be priced similarly to regular Uber X and Uber Comfort rides.
So no crazy markup just because it's a self-driving car?
Nope, they want to keep it affordable.
That makes sense. They want to make this accessible to everyone, not just the rich and famous. Speaking of accessibility, do we know anything about how Waymo is making sure these cars are usable for people with disabilities?
That's a really important consideration. And yeah, Waymo has been working on making their vehicles accessible. The Jaguar I-PACEs they're using in Austin have features like wheelchair ramps and audio-visual cues to help passengers with visual or hearing impairments.
That's great to hear. Okay, so we've talked about the partnership, how to sign up, what kind of car to expect, and the cost. But let's step back for a minute. This partnership and other similar things happening around the country, it feels like a real turning point for autonomous vehicles. You know, it feels like we're moving beyond just testing and toward wider adoption.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. There are a lot of factors coming together at the right time. The technology is getting better, companies are forming partnerships, and people are starting to get more comfortable with the idea of self-driving cars. It all seems to suggest that robotaxis are going to become a normal part of our lives.
Yeah, I think you're right. But of course, there are still challenges. Regulations and public trust, those are big ones.
Huge, yeah. Every city and state has different laws about self-driving cars. It's a mess. And then there's the fact that a lot of people are still uneasy about riding in a car that drives itself.
Yeah, even if it's statistically safer.
Exactly.
So how do we get over those hurdles? How do we build trust in this technology?
I think transparency is a big part of it. These companies need to be open about how their technology works, how they're addressing safety concerns, and how they're making sure passengers are safe. Education is important, too. We need to give people clear information so they can make informed decisions about whether or not they're comfortable with this technology.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We can't just expect people to trust it blindly. They need to understand how it works.
Yeah.
So it seems like we are moving toward a future where robotaxis are commonplace. But it's not going to happen overnight. This partnership in Austin is a big step, though.
Yeah, it is. And it raises a really interesting question. What will the world look like when robo-taxis are everywhere? How will it change our cities? How will it change our daily lives?
Wow, yeah. Those are some big questions. What do you think? What comes to mind when you imagine that future?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is parking lots. What if we didn't need them anymore? Imagine all that space in cities that could be used for something else, like parks, housing, you name it.
Yeah, that's wild. All that space just opened up.
It could really change the look and feel of our cities. And it's not just about space either. Think about accessibility. Robotaxis could provide a reliable way for people who can't drive to get around, like older folks or people with disabilities.
Right, that's a huge benefit. A lot of people struggle with transportation. And of course, we can't forget about the environmental impact.
For sure, a fleet of electric robotaxis would be a big win for the environment. Less pollution, cleaner air.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Plus, think about all the time we spend driving.
Oh, I know.
If we don't have to drive anymore, we can use that time for other things.
Exactly. Work, reading, relax, whatever you want.
This is pretty mind-blowing when you really think about it.
It is.
This partnership in Austin feels like a glimpse into the future, and that future is coming up fast.
It's definitely an exciting time.
It makes you wonder, if this becomes the norm, will people even need to own cars anymore?
That's the big question, isn't it? We might see a shift from owning cars to just subscribing to transportation services.
Like those monthly subscriptions that give you access to everything.
Exactly. Robotaxis, scooters, bikes, maybe even flying cars someday.
A monthly subscription for all your transportation needs.
It would totally change our relationship with cars.
Instead of owning this thing that loses value, you just pay for what you need.
Right.
And think about how that would impact cities. Fewer parking lots, more green space, more areas for people to walk and bike.
It's a whole new way of thinking about urban design.
This is fascinating.
There will be challenges, of course, but this is how progress happens.
Well said. This has been a really incredible deep dive into the world of robotaxis and the future of transportation. It seems like the way we get around is about to change in a big way.
It is.
And it's exciting.
It really is.
I think the most important thing for everyone listening to remember is this. The future is not set in stone. We have the power to shape it with our choices and our actions.
That's a great way to put it.
So as you go about your day, think about how you move around the world. Think about the possibilities. The future of transportation is in our hands.
And it's going to be an incredible ride.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.